story is about Jacob. Jacob tricks Esau. Isaac and his wife Rebekah had a difficult time having a baby, much like Abraham and Sarah. Finally, they had twin boys named Esau and Jacob. One night, Rebekah dreamed that her older son Esau would serve Jacob, her younger son. This was opposite of the custom at that time, when the birthright of inheritance was always given to the oldest son. As they grew up, Esau, who was his father's favorite, became a skillful hunter, while Jacob, who was his mother's favorite, liked to stay near the tents, tending the sheep. One day, Esau came home very hungry, as Jacob was cooking stew. "Let me have some of that or I will die," said Esau. "I will trade this food for your birthright," answered Jacob. This would mean that Jacob would now be considered the oldest and the one to lead the family after Isaac's death. The son who received the birthright received a double portion of land and possessions for his inheritance. Esau made the trade and eagerly ate the stew. A few years later, when Isaac was ready to die, Isaac asked Esau to make him a meal of wild game, promising to give Esau the blessing of the firstborn. Rebekah heard this, and while Esau was out hunting, she helped Jacob trick his father into believing that Jacob was Esau, so Jacob would receive the blessing. Jacob even covered his arms with animal skins to make them feel like Esau's hairy arms. Since Isaac was almost blind, he did not know that he had blessed Jacob until Esau returned from hunting. "Please bless me too," Esau begged his father. But Isaac told him he could only give one blessing. Esau was furious with Jacob. So Rebekah warned her favorite son to flee to her family's hometown of Haran. Rebekah was sad to see Jacob leave, but she had hoped that he would find a good wife and be safe. While he was on his way to Haran, he stopped to sleep and had a wonderful dream. Jacob dreams of a ladder. Jacob dreamed of a ladder that reached all the way to heaven, with angels walking up and down it. God stood at the top of the ladder, and he spoke to Jacob in a dream. God promised Jacob that he would bless him with many children, and that he would always be with Jacob and keep him safe in the land that he gave to Abraham and Isaac. When Jacob woke up, he built an altar there and named the place Bethel, which means house of God. Jacob marries and has children. When Jacob arrived in Haran, he fell in love with a girl named Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban. Jacob asked Laban if he could marry Rachel. Laban said yes, but only if Jacob would agree to work with him for 7 years, which he did. When the 7 years were over, the wedding finally took place. When Jacob lifted the bridal veil from his new bride's face, though, he did not see Rachel, but he saw her older sister Leah. Laban had tricked Jacob into marrying Leah because it was the custom for the oldest daughter to marry first. Jacob had to work another 7 years in order to marry Rachel. At that time, a man could have more than one wife. During the years that Jacob worked for Laban, he had 10 sons. When his 11th son was born, the first child of Rachel, Jacob packed up all his belongings and moved his family back home to Canaan. Laban did not want them to go, but Jacob, Rachel, Leah, and all their children and their helpers left in the night. Jacob wrestles with God. One night, on the way back to Canaan, Jacob met a man outside with whom he wrestled until morning. Just as Jacob was winning the wrestling match, the man touched him in the hip and it went out of joint. Thinking that this man was an angel of God, Jacob asked the man to bless him. The man told Jacob that his name would be changed to Israel, which means he who prevails with God. Then God renewed with Israel the covenants promise he had made with Abraham and Isaac. In the land of Canaan, Jacob's 12th son Benjamin was born, but Rachel died during childbirth. And when they buried her, the 12 sons of Jacob were named Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Joseph and Benjamin. Later we'll see how the families of each of these 12 sons become large tribes of the people called Israelites, because they are descended from Jacob, whose name is also Israel. After this, we will go into the story of Joseph, which is going to be our main focus for today. Thank you for listening.